is getting through it timelessly and getting the answers right. Those are the two uppermost things in a judge's mind. And because of the unremitting pressure, there's no time to dither. One of the things that is important for counsel to digest is that your courtcraft, your most important enemy, is not your opponent, but having to deal with a tired judge. Tired judge has a very short attention span. If you present matters to him that drown him in detail, he or she is not going to be able to keep up. He will not pick up the nuances of your submissions. You need to understand what you're dealing with. So your ability to make what is complex simple and succinct is absolutely critical in order to maintain your fix on the judge's attention. So beware of judicial fatigue. It's a huge thing, and you need to be ready for that at all times. So let's move on to different kinds of courts and different kinds of conditions that influence how judges do make the decision. Let's look at criminal trials first of all. Typically, what criminal trials are characterized in the High Court are matters of long duration. Hardly any trials in the criminal trial court these days that doesn't last more than a week. 2-3 weeks is pretty standard. The stakes are high because the liberty of the individuals are at stake. Never mind the social pressures on the horrors that they are alleged to have committed. There are huge volumes of narrative evidence, often dense detail that needs to be recorded and correlated. There are very few awkward law points that arise, generally speaking. And remember, when the judge comes in to start hearing the criminal case, he has no idea about this matter. He's probably been given the indictment an hour before, he might have read it. That is all he knows. He hasn't got the docket. He hasn't spent the weekend reading anything. He's absolutely ignorant of every important thing that he or she needs to know. And if a trial is going to run for a very long time, because it's expected of a judge at the end of a criminal trial to give the judgment there and then, you must understand that the judge has been making notes every night, marking up the evidence, making notes about the prima facie views, might change some of them later on. But that judgment has been growing since the first evening of the first day. And you need to be able to influence the impression the judge gets on day 1. Don't wait for day 15. Because prima facie views sometimes are concrete. And so that's the context in which criminal trials take place, and the conditions under which judges are making a judgment. In civil trials, the dynamics are quite different. Most civil trials don't last for more than a few days. It's generally speaking, numerically rare for a trial to last more than 5 days. But what you have is a lot of documents. And a lot of documents need to be correlated and digested, and you need to have a way to show the judge how to navigate through all of that. Almost inevitably, every civil case has more documents than need to be there. And that is often because counsel are uncertain as to whether or not they should put stuff in or leave stuff out. I'm not talking about discovery, I'm talking about the bundle. If you can pare the bundle down to what's really necessary, and at the end of the trial you actually have to look at every one of the documents in the bundle, which is properly indexed and navigable, you have done yourself an enormous favor in facilitating the mindset of the judge in making the decision. You will get prickly law points, come up much more often in civil trials than in criminal trials, and at the end of the matter, the judge has got to make a decision whether or not an extemporary judgment can be given or whether it's got to be reserved. Here again, particularly in Gauteng, is a critical thing council need to know. There's only so many judgments a judge can reserve at one time. Otherwise, you become so burdened with reserved judgments that you completely wear yourself out. If you're writing more than 2 reserved judgments a month, you put yourself under enormous pressure, because when you walk out of court, it isn't as if you go and play golf. There's lots of other work still to be done. So a judge is always looking to give an extemporary judgment where it's possible. Judgments are reserved only when there's a material reason why it's got to be done. And if you can help the judge get to a point where at the end of your 2-day trial, your 3-day trial, you can say, I'll give judgment in the morning, it comes back on Thursday, and it doesn't. You've done yourself an enormous favor, and you've done the judge an enormous favor. But if you complicate matters unnecessarily, so that it's got to be reserved for your complexities to be unraveled, it goes into the queue. So those are the conditions in civil trials. Now let's look at appeals. Appeals, in a sense, are some of the easiest matters to maintain control of. You've got a fixed record, you filed heads of argument, the judge has got time to prepare beforehand, the hearing is a debate on a record that everyone is familiar with, and there is an opportunity if you want to develop a particular point of law, develop something new, introduce a novel argument. You've got space to do it, because in the context of that word process, there is time. Opposed applications have a similar dynamic, save for one important factor, which undermines what I've just said about appeals, and that is the sheer volume. In Johannesburg, in the opposed motion court, every judge is going to be given between 10 and 12 matters to do in the course of a week. So the logistics of that are these. You can set a matter down at 10 o'clock, 11:30, and 2 o'clock for 4 days of the week, and that will give you 12 matters, and you'll leave Friday for any spillovers. Now, if the judge is going to get through his entire role in the course of the week on that kind of configuration, there isn't time to spare on anything but the essentials. And so you've got to bear that in mind. It's true enough, you filed heads, judges had a proper time, an opportunity to prepare, because he's got the papers 2 weeks before the week of the proposed motion. But remember, the preparation for that has all been done in the evening and over the weekend. There's no time allowed for preparation. It's all got to be done after hours. In the opposed motion court, the judge is looking to give an extemporary judgment in as many matters as he can. If the judge can reserve 2 of those judgments, maximum, to do over the weekend, he or she can keep one's head above water. But you can't reserve too many. And if you have a really bad week where circumstances force you to reserve 3 or 4, you've got a real minefield to cope with over the next month.